This guy's body is completely covered in cursed runes and battle scars, and he's treated like garbage by his own team. But why? Born into a powerful family, branded a failure, he exists for one purpose only: to absorb the curses and wounds of the world's hero squad. The silver-haired princess orders him to strip yet another curse from the blonde hero. Crash obeys. His dark power rips the poison straight out of the hero's veins and dumps it into his own shattered body. His job is to take their pain, and he's not even worth a second glance. All of this while a colossal, skeletal boss looms over them, ready to wipe humanity off the map. Then something goes wrong. The hero isn't fighting. He looks bored. He announces the world is finished and drops the bomb. His real power is regression. He's cracking open a gate to the past for himself and his three companions, and leaving Crash behind to be slaughtered. When Crash begs for help, the hero smiles, cold and cruel, and hands him the truth like a knife to the gut. Crash was never a comrade. He was a disposable item meant to be used until broken, then swapped out for a fresh version in the next timeline. And it wasn't just the hero. Every single member of that group owed Crash a debt written in blood. Abella, the Tower Witch, begged him to take her curses so she could keep casting. And when Crash, rotting from the inside out, went looking for something just to dull the pain, she attacked him. Mary Diana, the Empire's most powerful knight, made his days at the Academy a living hell. She beat him, mocked his Valheim roots, called him a liar, knowing full well he couldn't fight back. Sigrun, the very princess barking orders at him, turned on him in the final moment and defended the traitor hero without a second thought. Crash even gave up an eye for these people and got nothing but silence and contempt in return. Pure rage floods through him as the weight of it all crashes down. His sacrifice meant nothing. His pain meant nothing. Refusing to be thrown out like garbage, he forces his broken body forward and fires the Black Hood. Not at a curse this time, but at Arthur's regression power itself. The magic lunges forward, a dark hand closing around the hero from behind. Crash expects a lock. There is none. Arthur never treasured that power. To him, reliving the apocalypse over and over was its own curse. And in that moment, Crash understands. Arthur didn't just leave him behind. He handed him the one thing he wanted to be rid of and used Crash to do it. Even this was one last job, but none of that stops him. Crash tears the time travel magic apart at the exact moment the giant scythe obliterates reality itself. Then silence, birds, warm air. Crash's eyes snap open. No battlefield, no corpses, a soft bed. He bolts to a mirror and stares at his 10-year-old face, staring back, wide-eyed, untouched, with no idea what's coming. The regression worked. The power is his now. But this time, the disposable item remembers everything, and he will never be anyone's tool again. The world erosion is a phenomenon that corrodes the earth, dragging it into another dimension. After the event, drastic environmental changes occur, and they worsen with each new incursion. Between incursions, humanoid creatures emerge. They are known as the invaders of worlds. The moment they appear, their malevolent presence spreads terror. People run in panic as they watch the invaders devastate the villages. But there are humans who resist the erosion's advance. They fight against these invading monsters. Knights and mages are among those facing them right now. Together they are called the Blue Generation. The hero whose body can seal curses also joined the Blue Generation. In the end, he is treated like a vessel for curses and betrayed by his own comrades. Crash Valheim lived a miserable life until the day he woke up in the past at 13 years old. He wakes up in shock, realizing his friend's magic worked and sent him back in time. He is in his old childhood room. Moments ago, he faced a deadly cold. Now he feels the summer heat. He understands that his gamble using the Black Hood on Arthur brought him back to Greenpine Manor. The magic not only worked, it also stole Lord Arthur's ability. Confusion floods his thoughts. He wonders how it was possible to steal his former comrade's ability. The Black Hood's ability can be used freely with no apparent restrictions. However, to steal a target's possession, the user must unlock a lock generated upon activation. The lock's difficulty is based on the owner's affinity for the item. This increases the difficulty of the theft, an ability that could transfer 99% of the world's wealth to its wielder. It is a unique ability with an absurdly difficult theft condition, making it extremely valuable. Crash knows that the greater the target's value, the more complex the conditions for the theft. This makes him question what was going through Lord Arthur's mind, because when he activated the ability, no lock appeared. The absence of the lock can only mean one thing. Arthur wanted to get rid of that ability. The man known as the King of Heroes wanted to abandon his power of regression. Now he remembers. He had noticed something strange about Arthur lately. He remembers the constant look of exhaustion on his face. The world's imminent destruction and the endless problems drove Arthur to madness. To the King of Heroes, his ability was a curse, and that is why he tried to make the others keep their memories. The goal was for them to return together, leaving the hero behind. The theft of the ability, however, means something much deeper. It means that the Arthur that Crash knew lost the ability and was left behind in the doomed world. There he is crushed by the Blue Death Knight's meteor. The conclusion is clear that Arthur died to be free of the ability he saw as a curse. The hero laughs and hopes that Lord Arthur is happy and resting in peace. He does this even knowing that Arthur always despised him. After all, stealing curses is not something anyone can or wants to do. They never paid attention to the companion who suffered the most, always in the group's shadows. Back then, exhaustion and sadness consumed him, leading him to cry constantly. Now he understands that Arthur just got what he deserved for being a piece of trash. In the Green Pine Mansion, the hero realizes his body is still very small. Seeing his reflection, he notices he is only 10 years old with a small but already muscular frame. It is the result of wielding a sword every day to survive in the Valheim family, the strongest clan in the Kingdom of Star. His presence in the Green Pine Mansion is proof that the trial ceremony has already happened. The Valheim family's trial ceremony is the ritual where each person's ability is revealed by a contracted god. The god's rank depends on the contractor's quality, but he was the exception among the blessed bloodlines of Valheim. With no martial talent and rejected by all the gods, he is expelled from the main house. That is why he is sent to the Green Pine Mansion, the destination for all the failures of the royal bloodline. Now only he, the greatest failure of the Valheim family, knows something crucial. He knows about the end of the world, an apocalypse that not even the Blue Generation can stop. He wonders if he is capable of stopping this apocalypse, and as a consequence, the complete destruction of the world he knows. Crash Valheim, now a child, punches the air with determination. He tells himself not to be sad. He still does not know if he will be able to stop the end of the world. But Crash is motivated and tells himself that he must stop it. If the world ends, he will die with it. And so he has no choice. Immediately, he starts thinking about the first step to prevent the apocalypse. At that moment, Ariad, his butler, appears to serve the young master. The hero is immensely happy to see that old Ariad is alive. As the sole butler of the mansion, he asks if the young master needs anything. Ariad is the butler who cared for the failure known as Crash Valheim. However, the poison his brother gave him will be used on the butler, marking his first betrayal at 14 years old. A girl eliminates multiple enemies with a single swift strike. A powerful aura emanates from her body as she strikes down her opponents. The knights are in shock as a girl of only 15 has neutralized them all. She is the Sword Saint, Charlotte Valheim, Crash's older sister. Her talent is said to be a phenomenon that appears only once in a millennium. They know she is a genius from another bloodline, and that thanks to her, the Valheim family will never be extinguished. The one who says this is Belakanin, Crash's half-brother, who actually wants to eliminate this entire bloodline. Despite this, they consider Charlotte a huge risk, though they comment that her mother is decent. The conversation then turns to the useless failure of the Valheim family. Belakanin reveals his plan to eliminate Crash and communicates his intention to old Aliad. He argues that the butler's career was cut short because of Crash, offering a motive for the elimination. Belelowin proposes that Aliad give Crash a poison, and in return he will no longer have to worry about his daughter's treatment or money. The butler, however, hesitates as he raised young Master Crash as if he were his own son. Noticing the hesitation, the half-brother cuts him off with a new argument. He asks if he is really going to choose to save someone else's son instead of saving his own biological daughter. The weight of the choice makes the old butler, Aliad, reflect deeply. In the end, he concludes that he cannot save Crash over his own daughter. But in the past, events unfolded differently, and a young Crash trembles in fear. He cries as he sees Aliad on the ground, gravely wounded and spitting blood. The butler apologizes to the young master, confessing that his mission that day was to eliminate him. He confesses to this act even while considering the young master as precious as a son. In that instant, he makes the decision to die in the little boy's place. Crash is crushed by guilt over his butler's death. Iliad eats the poisoned steak in Crash's place, using the poison his brother gave him for the task. Now Crash approaches and asks the old butler when he intends to take that poison. Iliad is in shock at the question, as Crash knows he plans to poison him to save his own daughter. He states that sooner or later, the truth would come to light. Afraid of forcing him to make an impossible choice again, Crash demands that he stop feigning ignorance. He knows this order would never have been given if he were not considered the family's failure. Iliad expected Crash to cry with rage or feel guilty about his betrayal, but the young master's reaction is completely different from what the old butler expected. He asks the butler to follow him. They walk to the library and Iliad assumes the young master has come to study. The young master orders his butler to cut the wall. He states that the task will be easy as Iliad is the butler of the Valheim family. The butler takes a few steps forward. He prepares himself and draws his sword. His magical energy activates, preparing him for potential combat. Then he unleashes a strike that generates a powerful blast of wind. The attack destroys part of the wall with a clean and precise cut. Iliad is shocked to discover a secret passage in that location. As he watches the young master enter the passage, the butler notices something. Crash has become a completely different person. He now possesses the aura of a lord. The young man observes the secret location and memories begin to surface. Before, everything in this place was consumed by fire, but in this reality, he has reached the location before the fire. The butler asks the young master if he wants the chains on the door to be cut. Crash replies that he will not be able to, and decides to test the power of the Black Hood ability. The darkness advances toward the padlock on the door and begins to destroy it. In the end, the chains holding the door break completely. In that instant, his butler is shocked by the ability the young master used. Crash removes the padlock and Iliad asks if he has made a contract with a god. At this time in his life, he has not yet made such a contract. He then replies that the contract was made with an insignificant deity. The butler is confused when the young man asks him to report what happened in the library to his father until the day before. Young Crash's eyes seemed empty and lifeless. Suddenly, everything changed the moment he made a contract with a god. He imagines that the young master has obtained a powerful ability and remembers that he shares the same bloodline as his sister, the greatest genius of the Valheim family. Even if he is not on Charlotte Valheim's level, the butler believes he can become very strong. For this reason, he decides to understand what has happened to the young master. He tells the young master that he will not report anything about the incident. Crash then understands a side effect of his regression to the past. His actions, different from before, have caused a change in Iliad. The Iliad who betrayed him now exists only in his memories. He thinks about Arthur's suffering and the possibility of having gotten rid of that ability. He plans to cure the butler's daughter's illness to earn his loyalty, increasing the number of pawns in his new life. His rude and impolite demeanor is a facade, a calculated act for the moment he cures the butler's daughter. But for now, the secret library is his only priority. As he opens the doors, a powerful purple light floods his vision. The shock is immediate, and his eyes widen at the scene. Suddenly, a beam of intense magical light erupts through the door, startling him. A chill runs through his body, even for someone who has endured countless curses on his journey. In that instant, there is no doubt that the book he seeks is in this library. His eyes are drawn to an intense light emanating from one of the shelves. And finally, he finds the book he has been looking for all this time. In these books, the ancestors considered failures of the Valheim family recorded their techniques and life memories. This is a product of humanity, a place where they kept their secrets to reach the pinnacle of power. At first, access was free, but it all became secret because of a single person. That person was Darius Valheim. This man was the greatest failure in the history of the Valheim lineage, but he was also the one who, consumed by the world's erosion, became the strongest of all. The image shows his smile after being consumed by the erosion. Now the secret book of his ancestors' greatest failure is in his hands. The story of Darius Valheim, the family's greatest failure, unfolds. And yet, he was the strongest in the entire history of the Valheims. At the height of his power, the most powerful warriors of the era challenged him. With his dehumanized hands and giant fangs, he created spheres of pure energy. No one was capable of stopping the monstrosity that was Darius Valheim. All who faced him met their death. Extreme blood immersion venom. That was his ability. He incorporated the world's erosion into his own body, possessing the insane secret weapon to wield such power. Half of the book is burned, and he assumes that Diamaris went mad as the erosion advanced. He remembers when he was struck by the curse of erosion, weakening it with the Black Hood and compensating with other curses. If the same principle applies to the devastation caused by the extreme blood immersion venom, and if he steals a curse that controls this advance, then he can acquire the strength of the erosion like Dearest, but without going mad from the consequences. In this way, he can become as strong as Dearest. Confidence grows within him as the plan to control the venom and avoid insanity seems possible. Crash makes a request to his butler, Aliad. He orders that no one is allowed to enter the Green Pine Mansion. The butler obeys and leaves the library. Aliad intends to repay the young master's favor, and that is why he refuses Belliconen's offer. Belliconen is enraged by the refusal, especially when Aliad states that his true master is the young Crash Valheim. Belliconen's fury grows as he thinks about such a failure in the family, and even Charlotte's genius irritates him, all because her bloodline became an obstacle in his path. If it were not for her, both he and Lise would have kept their positions in the direct bloodline. The memory consumes him with rage. He lets out a scream and his butler approaches to ask if he needs anything. Belliconen orders the butler to go to the Green Pine Mansion, where the young Master Crash is. He demands to know why Aliad changed his mind, but the butler replies that he cannot enter the mansion. Aliad blocks entry to everyone, including the head of the family himself. Belliconen is outraged by the audacity of them preventing the owner from entering his own property. The older brother explodes in fury against the younger one, calling him an arrogant failure. Meanwhile, the hero meditates, releasing a large amount of energy in the process. He realizes he has reached the experienced beginner level. There are several stages of aura, and he is in the first, the user stage, as he has just learned to master it. The second stage is the experience level where most aura users are. He has barely reached the beginning of the path, while Charlotte, only 2 years older, is already an aura master. But not even his older sister's terrifying power was enough. In the end, she also gave in, as her power did not work against the erosion. Compared to his sister, Charlotte Valheim, he is nothing more than a beginner. The realization makes him question if he can really save the world. At this rate, his older consciousness observes him, reminding him that he will only know the answer when he tries. He orders himself to stop lamenting because before the regression, he could not even use aura. Now the situation is different. Even if he still cannot compare to his sister, he can get stronger with the secret art, a legacy left by the failures of his family. That is why Crash regains his confidence. He believes he can become stronger and that it will be enough. His butler congratulates him for reaching the experienced beginner level. The protagonist responds modestly, saying it was nothing special. He then asks why the butler waited for his meditation to end. Aliad informs him that his fiancée, Bianca Hardenhearts, has arrived at the Green Pine Mansion. The news leaves Crash stunned. Bianca is known by a fearsome nickname, the White Demon. She was the leader who, as a pawn of the World Eaters, tried to destroy everything and earned that nickname by defeating the strongest Celestials. Now she is just the youngest daughter of the Hardens family. Their marriage is a political arrangement. The Hardens rule the North, and the Valheims use this alliance to connect with a powerful martial family. Thus, the two children are mere instruments for their families. He has business with Bianca, but her visit is unexpected. Bianca is the youngest daughter of the Hardenarts, the rulers of the North, and was born after her mother was taken by the curse of erosion. She carries the curse of the Snow Doll, a condition that left her devoid of emotions from birth. The curse struck her unbreakable soul and corrupted her body, preventing her from forming a contract with a god. She is treated as a cursed child born in exchange for her mother's life. That is why Bianca is treated coldly by the Hardens family. He wonders if Bianca hates him for some reason. As long as he does not steal her curse, there will be no reason for Bianca to hate him. After all, the Snow Doll is necessary to control the fury of the extreme immersion poison in her blood. He decides to change his clothes to receive her. He orders the butler to let her in so they can talk. 5 months earlier, Crash Valheim and the girl had a fight. He threw her out when he realized she only wanted the Valheim family's power. On that occasion, he demanded the apathetic girl stop pretending to be his wife. She showed no reaction, but the fight struck her deep in her soul. This is why Bianca was reluctant to go to the Green Pine Mansion. Her parents warned her that their survival depended on winning the young Valheim's heart. So even though she wanted no part in the plan, she went against her will. She was told that the fate of the Hardens family was in her hands. She reflects that if she were not being forced into marriage by her family, she would not be stuck with a loser like him. Despite showing no reaction, she feels uneasy, and shows anxiety upon arriving at the mansion. The girl is certain that in an ideal reality, she would reject someone like him. Crash arrives to greet her, and the moment promises to be grim. However, he is kind and says he will reprimand the maid for serving hot tea to his fiancée Bianca. The girl shows no reaction to Crash Valheim's kindness. He comments on the weather and invites her for a walk in the garden to see the flowers. He then asks a servant to bring macadamia cookies for them both. He tells Bianca the journey must have been difficult and that they need to see each other in person since they are getting married. He observes that she speaks as if she is in front of a superior, not her future spouse. The girl notices he is different than before and finds this change strange. Before his gaze was sharp, but now he seems like a completely different person. He observes the nature around them, commenting that the place is very peaceful. Faced with such strangeness, Bianca asks if he is really Crash Valheim. The two stare at each other the moment she asks the question. He controls his reaction to avoid giving himself away. He scratches his head once again, pondering what to say. The young master then asks if he is really so different from how he used to be. In that instant, he releases a murderous intent that Bianca perceives, and a sinister aura envelops him. She apologizes for bringing it up, and he realizes he has scared her. His memories of that time are a mess, and he does not remember how he treated her. Looking at her apathetic face, he recognizes Bianca's signature expression. It is the same expression she wore when he met his end at the Northern Frozen Sea mansion. He tries to change the subject, revealing that he made a contract with God. The woman concludes that his personality changed because of this contract. It is then that he says he has a proposal for her. She asks if the proposal is to annul the marriage now that he has made a contract with God. Crash interprets this to mean she does not want to marry someone like him, and that her desire to annul the engagement reveals her low self-esteem. However, the girl hears his assumption and neither corrects him nor denies the accusation. On the contrary, she affirms that she is his wife and declares that nothing will change that fact. He is genuinely surprised to hear Bianca say this without any trace of a lie. Crash decides to return to the main topic and talks about the ability he has awakened. He reveals that he intends to steal Bianca's curse for himself. She finds it strange that he wants to steal a curse that not even the greatest experts could break. She asks if he intends to handle the curse alone, and he confirms, wanting to use it to grant her any wish. She knows Crash is treated as a failure, and that a barrier exists between him and the main family. The girl deduces that he is tired of everything and wants to use her curse to erase his own emotions. She wonders if this is what they call a disease of the heart. After all, a mage once told her that when someone reaches their maximum mental potential, they get a disease of the heart. Succumbing to this disease can lead a person to take their own life or to become kind, as if they were a different person. It is a dangerous time where certain behavioral changes are warning signs of an imminent end. The mage warned her that if she ever met someone like that, she should stay by their side. In response, she holds Crash Valheim's hand and affirms that everything will be all right. She adds that he needs to learn to control his emotions without relying on the curse. She promises to visit him regularly, perhaps even live near him, and he is astonished as he thought she hated him and rejected the marriage. Bianca replies that even if that were true, she would never abandon someone in danger. He understands that Bianca is the type to act without hesitation once she makes a decision, but she is interpreting everything wrong. He fears she will refuse to give up the curse, and for that reason, he decides to activate his ability immediately. He then activates the Black Hood's ability, which manifests and surrounds the girl. His hand passes through her and begins to steal the curse from her body. The condition for the unlock is activated, but something surprises him in the process. After all, the first condition requires him to become friends with Bianca. Crash realizes this will be a problem, as the curse is recognized as part of her body and holds value because she was born with it. To unlock the condition, he needs to become friends with the White Demon, a task more difficult than becoming her husband. If he sends her away, it is only a matter of time until she becomes the White Demon. So keeping her close is the best option at this moment. Following Bianca's suggestion is the best method, and he welcomes the opportunity to see his wife regularly. Then the girl says she will first confirm with her father if she can live near the hero. She says goodbye, and Crash calculates he will have a month until her return, time he will use to read all the books on secret arts. The next day inside the Green Pine Mansion, something happens. Bianca is back to the hero's complete surprise. She announces that she will live with him in the mansion starting today, and that she expects to be well taken care of. The hero is in shock at the news that he will be living with the girl. The hero begins to awaken. He slowly opens his eyes. He then notices that the girl is sleeping by his side. He wonders if Bianca decided to sleep by his side again. He thinks that if a visitor saw them like that, they would misunderstand the situation. She wakes up, wishes him a good morning, and asks what he is doing there. The protagonist asks Bianca the same question. Afterward, he begins his long and habitual meditation routine. As he stops to think, he realizes that months have passed since Bianca came to live with him. He remembers the day she arrived and announced she would be living with him in the Green Pine Mansion. When she was placed under his care, the hero was completely shocked. She was moving in because her family gave permission without even consulting him. He thought about asking if she would be okay far from her family since she was only 12 years old. But when you have no emotions, affection for family disappears, and she was indifferent. This turned out to be a good opportunity to befriend her and fulfill the requirement to steal the curse. It all happened in the summer, and now it is almost winter, with nearly half a year having passed. The opening of Rahern Academy, established by the Four Great Kingdoms and the Empire, is approaching. It trains people capable of opposing the erosion of the world, accepting students between 15 and 20 years of age. Before his regression, it was this academy that produced countless members of the Blue Generation. It was because of that scum that he died, and the mere memory fills him with rage. Because he knows their weaknesses better than anyone, he will steal their skills. He turns 14 next year, and only 365 days remain until enrollment. That is why he must grow stronger by then, stealing the skills he needs. He is beginning to hit the limits of his talent, which restrict him to the level of a novice, the first step toward becoming an expert. His only choice is to steal Bianca's doll curse as soon as possible and learn to use the blood immersion poison. He enters the room and finds Bianca, who was waiting for him, reading a book. Bianca states that she cannot leave Crash Valheim alone. She follows him everywhere, as if he were a helpless chick. He wonders when she will finally see him as a friend, which is necessary to meet the condition for stealing the curse. Crash considers asking her out, hoping to build the necessary affinity. At that very moment, his butler informs him that an invitation from the Starlight Sanctuary has just arrived. The Starlight Sanctuary is an annual gathering for the youth of the Star Kingdom, an event for socializing and forging connections. He vaguely recalls the event and thanks Aliad for the explanation. Because he was confined to the Green Pine Mansion before his regression, his memories of the event are hazy. Despite this, he accepts the invitation. He suspects a certain person will be there and decides to go. Also, to keep the promise he made to his butler. He announces that he will go to the Starlight Sanctuary with Bianca and asks Aliad to notify the necessary people. Bianca warns him that the other attendees at the Starlight Sanctuary will surely try to criticize him. He knows she is right, but he is more worried about what they might say to Bianca. She, however, does not back down and affirms that she will go with him to the Starlight Sanctuary. He argues that it is his duty as her fiancé to protect her from such situations. He clarifies that he is not asking as her fiancé, but because he wants to know her true feelings. She sees the look of pity on his face, and it bothers her once again. For the past few months, Crash has treated her with a strange and unexpected kindness. He takes her with him to the library and even asks what she wants for breakfast. He lets her sleep peacefully under a tree while he tends to his own affairs. The girl feels genuinely happy to be treated with such kindness, something she never experienced in the Harden household. It gets to the point where she almost forgets the terrible first impression she had of him. She realizes she is starting to like Crash and states that she wants to go with him of her own free will, not just as his fiancé. Crash is visibly surprised to hear Bianca's words. In light of this, he agrees to let her accompany him to the Starlight Sanctuary. They depart by carriage, passing the Grand Garayu Pavilion on the way. She notices that he has rented out the region's most famous landmark entirely and realizes the immense wealth they possess. In this world, the reason nobles are respected is because they fight the world's erosion in place of the commoners. And yet, these party-obsessed people are considered the future of Starlon. At that moment, the hero and his fiancée Bianca arrive and enter the hall. He doubts there are many decent people in the Star Sanctuary. As soon as they enter, comments arise about him being the family's useless son and her the cursed woman of the Northern Conqueror. Being in the middle of these false nobles will not be effective until someone gets excited by Valheim's arrival, considering him interesting and different from the others. This proves that there are some true nobles in this place. This is Treso Barak Hogma. At his side is the Elflia. And finally, the third is the wood archer Annex Glazer. Together, the trio will be known as the Heroes of Starlon. The reason for their interest in him is specific. The hero is certain it is because of Charlotte, Crash's older sister. She commented that many praised her dress and that no one in the sanctuary is capable of defeating her in combat. Charlotte found the gathering very boring and boasted excessively. Judging by the atmosphere, the hero realizes his sister has already caused trouble and decides to leave the sanctuary as soon as possible. In that instant, Bianca pulls on his suit to get his attention. She tells him not to mind what people are saying, but he replies that he is actually thinking of his sister. He claims he does not care about the insults and notices that she, also a target of their scorn, worries more about him than herself. Suddenly, they overhear people talking about the couple, referring to them without using their names. When the young master and his fiancée Bianca approach, everyone falls silent. They announce the arrival of Lord Darling Danfelion to the Star Sanctuary for the gathering. The center of attention from the alchemy castle Darling appears. He is the strangest among the eccentric nobles. The protagonist's body is covered in curse marks. A person tries to touch his body asking why he is like this. The same person comments that this type of curse erosion can be resolved in a certain way. She claims she can cure him and asks if he is interested in being her test subject. Seeing he has no energy to respond, she assumes he accepts the proposal. She states that the healing session will begin immediately. The woman then does something that makes Crash's eyes go wide. She approaches slowly, intending to kiss him on the mouth. The hero stops him. The figure before him is the Lord of the Alchemy Castle, Darling Danfelion. It is the first time he meets the man who will later be known as the King of Alchemy. In the present, he charms everyone at the ball. The hero cannot believe this attention-addicted stalker is in a place with so many people. The hero then approaches Bianca seeking help to deal with the situation. She continues eating and responds apathetically, saying she will stay exactly where she is. The hero approaches Darling to start a conversation, but the alchemist does not recognize him. However, when the young man introduces himself as Crash Valheim, the name sparks a faint memory in Darling. Then the memory clicks into place. He is Charlotte's younger brother, and the resemblance between them is remarkable. Realizing the connection, the nobleman is fascinated by the fact that he is Charlotte's brother. Darling asks if he has some business with him, and speculates that his clothes must have caught the boy's eye. The hero ignores the taunt and changes the subject, revealing that he knows about Darling's research on the world's erosion. The revelation instantly piques Darling's interest in the boy. Darling remarks that he is quite a provocative boy. He states that his interest is piqued, and the two withdraw to a private room, closing the door behind them. The future king of alchemy asks Crash his age. Darling picks up 2 swords as the hero answers that he is 13 years old. The alchemist remarks that he looks young, but his aura is completely at odds with his age. Internally, he feels like an academy veteran, so he decides to get straight to the point. The king of alchemy orders him to say everything he has to say. In that moment, the protagonist grips his sword and begins to tremble. His eyes widen as he witnesses a bewildering sight. The king of alchemy strikes with his sword, and the boy parries at the last second. He then dodges and asks what Darling is doing, questioning the sudden attack. Darling replies that since he is Charlotte's brother, he wants to test his skills first. This deeply irritates the protagonist, who wanted to get straight to the point. Darling asks what he has to discuss, stating that he is listening to the proposal. The hero prepares to attack, and a dark aura forms around him. The sight surprises Darling, who had considered him a useless boy with no skills whatsoever. The hero states that he trains every day and warns Darling not to use his techniques against a student. He mentions curse enhancement and says he could help the King of Alchemy with that matter. Darling asks what he knows about alchemy to justify proposing a partnership. Hearing the question, the protagonist stares at the future King of Alchemy in silence. He then leaps into the air and spins his body. He places his sword against Darling's neck, ending the fight. He then states that the subject is the research to neutralize the world's erosion curse. He adds that the dispersers have not yet managed to break it using other curses. But to become a first-class alchemist, Darling needs to validate this research. Knowing this, the hero wants to help Darling become a great alchemist. He promises to help him by using his ability to steal curses. The offer leaves the eccentric nobleman in shock once again, as he realizes the boy has an aura and is not useless and unskilled. Darling realizes that if the boy's words are true, this will be the perfect opportunity to test the supply and demand of curse neutralization. He asks if he can become his boyfriend in return. But what Crash wanted was a remedy to reduce the curses. Mixing remedies is Darling's specialty, and he confirms he will do what was asked. The Blue Generation had extraordinary abilities, but still failed to prevent the world's destruction. That is why a useless person like him needs to use every means possible, including remedies. Darling had heard he lost his motivation from being compared to Charlotte, but now he realizes that was a lie. While she is an overwhelming genius, he is a twisted individual. The eccentric and utterly distinct nature of the siblings excites Darling. In response, he asks the young man a direct question. He asks if the boy intends to attend Rayharn Academy. With a confident look, the young man affirms that he obviously will. The answer leaves the future king of alchemy completely enchanted. He declares that he will mix the remedies for the curse and is very excited to cooperate with Crash. Crash, however, has one more request. He mentions the discoloration disease, an incurable condition that darkens the victim's skin until death. The young master then orders him to create a cure for this curse. The alchemist, however, states that the disease is incurable and that creating a cure is impossible even for him. Coming from the future, Crash knows that Darling will eventually find the cure. Darling clenches his fists and considers a response. Crash insists that he will be able to find a cure for the curse. Darling replies that the insistence wounds his pride a little. Despite this, the two shake hands and seal their promise. Crash asks that the remedy be sent to the Green Pine Mansion, and Darling promises to deliver it in person. He cannot stop thinking about how deeply Crash loves his sister Charlotte. Darling then confesses that the spot by his side is vacant and that he would like to be his boyfriend. He admits the boy is still a child, but confesses that he also likes men. Hearing the alchemist's confession, the young man becomes visibly frightened. He starts running the instant the king of alchemy declares him his future lover. Crash remembers that Darling was the exact same type of man in his previous life. Back at the sanctuary, he notices a crowd forming a circle around some kind of scene. With a grim expression, he runs to see what is happening. In the center of the circle, a man holds Bianca by the arm, but her expression remains indifferent. Even with her arm gripped tightly, her thoughts are only of Crash. The moment he appears, she calls his name with an apathetic gaze. In that instant, Crash lands a kick on the man holding Bianca's arm. The impact sends the aggressor flying, making him crash into a table. The man was trying to take his fiancée by force. In response, Crash confronts him and demands to know what he thinks he is doing. He questions why the man dared to take his betrothed against her will. The man reacts in shock to the accusation. Crash points out that he was putting his hands on a 12-year-old girl, his fury evident. He asks if the man has that kind of taste, and the frightened guard vehemently denies it. The man defends himself, claiming he was only following orders from Princess Clea. Crash is surprised to hear the name Clea Stalin. The second princess ordered him to take Lady Bianca, and since she resisted, he had to use force. Bianca watches everything in silence, and Crash decides to believe the man's story. After all, she is the youngest daughter of the Hardened Hearts, the rulers of the North, and the curse has tarnished the family's reputation among the nobles. Crash wonders why the princess would go to the trouble of summoning Bianca personally. He is certain that something is wrong. He searches for the real reason behind the princess's order. Then another connection forms in his mind. Someone close to the princess. The memory of that malicious boy's face surfaces. It was Annex, the man who obsessively stalked his sister. Even after his defeat at the Star Sanctuary, Annex's hatred and sick admiration for Charlotte persist. Annex knows he can never defeat Charlotte, so now his sights are set on him. Crash now understands the stalker's plan. With the truth in mind, Crash turns back to the guard. His attitude changes completely, and he allows the man to carry out his task. However, he sets one condition. He wants to see Lord Annex, not the second princess. He states that the guard serves the princess without knowing who is really pulling the strings. And so he and Bianca head to the meeting with the princess and Lord Annex. The two of them walk down the hall towards their destination. On the way, Crash reflects on why Bianca refused the order. He is able to unravel the plot because he has lived through all this before. But Bianca, at only 12 years old, should not be able to sense the danger. He then asks his fiancée why she disobeyed the princess's summons. She replies that she was only obeying his order to wait in that spot. Crash Valheim smiles, realizing the girl's total innocence. He pats her head and tells her she did a good job. Suddenly, Annex starts to laugh. He is surprised to see the protagonist arrive. Crash says he came to see him, and Annex is pleased with the answer. The order was to allow young Master Crash inside the moment he arrived. The protagonist realizes the order was meant for Treso, Barak Hogma. He wonders who considered him such a skilled dual-wielding swordsman and where it all went wrong. Crash is relieved to learn that Annex gave an order to help him. Annex is curious about Crash Valheim and wants to fight him. Crash fought Charlotte even though it is forbidden in the sanctuary, and that is why Annex believes facing him will be easy. Although both are experts, Annex's level is higher and his battle sense is unpredictable, making it impossible for Crash to read his movements. Before facing Annex, Crash wants to avoid a confrontation with this man. But seeing the look in Tresso's eyes, he knows his opponent will not give up the fight so easily. Tresso clenches his fists, concentrating his mana for a powerful punch. The massive blow hurtles toward Crash, who dodges and prepares a counterattack. He slides to evade Tresso's attack. Tresso performs an acrobatic flip to dodge the protagonist's strike. Crash gets back on his feet, ready for another attack. He kicks Tresso with all his strength, and the blow connects. His gaze is one of rage and precision fixed on his enemy. Then he unleashes the one-in punch onto Grasso. The impact slams his enemy to the ground, knocking him unconscious. The protagonist sighs, ending the fight quickly and easily. Moments later, he wakes up and accuses Crash Valheim of being cruel. Crash replies that he was the one who challenged him and that he could have avoided the fight. Now Tigresso says he will get his weapon so they can fight again. The young master asks if Tresso can even continue the fight. Even though he is injured, he smiles, confident about a second round. However, he suddenly collapses from the damage sustained in the fight. He passes out completely, unable to continue to a second round. He explains to Bianca that he used a secret family technique in the fight. The one-in punch came from a failure of the Valheim family. It is a secret technique that unleashes maximum destructive power at close range and causes internal damage before his return. It was the only technique he managed to salvage from the burning mansion. Thanks to it, he survived countless life or death situations. He used his best technique, and he knows Tresso will not be getting up for a long time. He says they can now enter the hall since their opponent will no longer be in the way. They open the door ready to face their targets. They find a man and a woman leaning on the balcony of the sanctuary. Someone approaches and calls for Baal. The man finds it hilarious that they managed to defeat Barak Hagma. Crash knows that Annex used the second princess to lure him to this location. He realizes Annex is not here for her, but came directly for him. Annex concludes the rumors are false since Crash figured it all out on his own. Crash challenges him to a duel and declares there will be a consequence if he loses. He states that the rumors will change after this fight because he intends to steal his ability. If the rumors call him a failure, then defeating him today will change that story. Annex Glazer watches Crash as he speaks. They were together from the academy to the Blue Generation. In his past life, they were old friends. They went through many trials together, but that friendship only existed because Crash was useful to Glazer. And that usefulness was revealed for the worst possible reason. The moment came when everyone in their group died, leaving Crash in complete despair. He begged Annex Glazer for help. Annex knew that if anyone found out the trap was his fault, he would lose his place in the Blue Generation. Crash said that if he was the only one to survive, no one would have to know the truth. He argued that the internal power struggles were complicated and that Annex would be expelled because of a single incident. Upon hearing all that, Annex made his decision because he did not want to be expelled. He would blame it all on Crash since everyone hated him, and the truth about the incident would be forgotten. In response, Annex thanked Crash for being his friend until the end. Crash was hanging from the edge of a cliff, blind with rage against Glazer. He screamed that he had only been with Annex from the start because of Charlotte, and that the tragedy happened because he was distracted by his desire to marry her. Glazer retorted that this was the exact reason he hated Crash Valheim. He accused him of having no talent, but possessing a sharp intuition that always got in his way. And since Charlotte was getting married, their relationship would end that day. Annex said that maybe this was for the best for both of them. After all, Charlotte would not want a funeral on her wedding day. Crash's strength gave out, and he let go of the rock he was holding. As his body fell from the cliff, he wondered if his life would end like this until someone grabbed his hand. It was Arthur, and the two of them ended up on the same team. However, that was the beginning of an even bigger catastrophe. After that, Annex was expelled from the Blue Generation because of Arthur's testimony, and in his desperation, he tried to marry the princess. Back in the present, Annex comments that Crash's face and way of speaking are identical to Charlotte's. Hearing this enrages the hero as he remembers the past and sees that his enemy has not changed at all. He orders Annex not to speak his sister's name so casually. With power concentrated in his hands, he charges toward the enemy. He declares that just like his sister, he never runs from a fight and always goes on the attack. Annex Glazer shows no reaction. A tree erupts from the ground to block his punch. The hero grabs the branch, preparing an acrobatic move. He then vaults onto the branch to launch another attack, but the branch beneath his feet begins to break apart. It coils around his ankle as if it were alive. Then the tree root grabs him by the foot and hurls him away. He slams into the ground and more branches instantly erupt to pin him down. He finally breaks free from the branches and takes a fighting stance once more. But exhaustion begins to set in just as he predicted. This is a difficult fight. Annex asks if that is all he has and suggests he use a weapon against the Glazer family's secret technique, the celestial wood style. He combines his recovery ability to manipulate various plants, reinforcing them with his aura. The hero picks up a piece of wood and asks if this is the weapon he wanted. He declares he will fight using the same kind of branch his opponent is so fond of. Glazer is insulted by young Master Valheim's attitude. He challenges him to block his Ru attacks with nothing but that small branch. In that instant, the boy rushes forward, dodging every attack with apparent ease. His agility surprises Glazer, who watches him evade every strike. It would make sense if he were a genius like Charlotte, but he is just the family failure. Glazer wonders if he has awakened the mind's eye to Crash. He is no different from any other enemy, and that is his greatest advantage, because in his past life, he saw these same skills until he was sick of them. He knows that Annex is easily distracted whenever he thinks about Charlotte. Taking advantage of a moment of silence, the hero realizes his opponent is thinking about Charlotte again. In response, Annex uses his magic to summon an enormous tree trunk for his next attack. The hero shields his face from the cloud of dust rushing toward him. Annex uses the fifth form of the celestial wood style to create a monster, the wooden giant. He warns that the fight is about to get harder and tells his opponent to be careful. The princess watches and says that Annex should not have done that. After all, if young Master Crash takes a direct hit, there will be a serious problem. As she fears the irreversible consequences, the wooden giant readies a punch aimed at the boy. The hero, however, shows no fear. He already seems to have a plan to deal with the threat. Among the books in the mansion's library, there is a tiny secret manual. Its author and ancestor of the family was a man with no talent who wielded his sword until the age of 80, repeating the same training infinitely. The manual written in his final years is short and describes swinging practices and a technique that requires total unity between the swordsman and the sword. However, having faced similar situations many times because of his curse, he understands the ancestor's secret technique. He and the sword become one, and he swings it in a single motion. In that strike, he accesses a specific dimension and delivers a clean cut that eliminates the wooden giant. He defeats the monster using only a branch, not a sword. The princess is in complete shock at the scene. Annex Glazer also cannot believe what he sees. Our hero emerges from the smoke, drawing his opponent's attention. He throws the branch on the ground and warns him not to be so arrogant next time. However, our hero is also exhausted after eliminating the wooden giant. His plan was to hold back just enough to make stealing the skill easier, but he used all his strength and now he cannot move a muscle or even speak. Bianca then appears, hugs him, and says she will help Crash. She presses hard on his chest as if trying to stop him from choking. At this rate, Crash will die, and the others ask her to stop.